be okay. You'll be okay.
Will Callie go to jail, and will Jesus finally confront Brandon? Will we get our answers? Maybe we will in the season 4 finale of The Fosters. Let's break it down right here on what happened. Welcome back, you lovely people, to another Fosters recap. Today I'm talking all about the season 4 finale titled Until Tomorrow. So let's dive in. Warning, this is gonna be kind of a long one because a lot happened. First up, let's talk about that whole Anchor Beach becoming a private school situation. We learned last episode that Nick's dad, Mr. Stratos, is the one pushing for this, but we're not exactly sure why. So Lena goes to the school to talk to that snake in the grass, Drew, and asks if he has any idea who Mr. Stratos is, and she tries to explain what he's done or what his son has done, and then Drew cuts her off by saying, you know what, I know you had some personal stuff with them, but all his intentions are good, and even if they aren't or weren't good, the end result will be good for everyone, including that Lena's kids will go to the school for free and she'll make more money. Really, Drew? It's not all about the money. Now, Lena is not happy about this, and since Drew doesn't even know how to say her name right, that's right, he called her Lena or something like that, she snaps back at him saying, first of all, my name is Lena, and also I will be back at work tomorrow full time. He then tells her, don't come back if you're gonna stir the pot. The vote is tomorrow and you can't do anything about it. Ugh, really don't like this Drew guy. Now, by now, the rumor has spread throughout the school, and a lot of the kids are really worked up, and it seems like Mariana's kind of taking charge of all this. They're in a classroom making protest signs when Lena comes in saying she needs them to be calm and under control, and instead of causing a scene and doing a protest during school, they should wait until the board meeting the next day where their voices will be heard. Lena also then tells Mariana that it's Nick's dad behind all of this. Now, at the board meeting, a bunch of the students have gathered, and before the meeting starts, Mariana confronts Nick's dad, who's walking into the meeting, and asks him, why are you doing this? Nick doesn't even go here anymore.
She doesn't even go here.
Mr. Stratos then snaps back saying, whose fault is that? When Mariana already has her claws out with a comeback saying, it's your fault, and how he's been a horrible dad and Nick never had a chance with a dad like him, and she won't let him take her school. Now, Mr. Stratos, being the asshole that he is, says she doesn't have a say in that. Now, in the board meeting, Lena asks Drew what's going on and why all the students are outside, and Drew says, oh, the board voted and now it's a closed meeting. Somehow, I have a feeling Drew's lying. Anyway, Mr. Stratos then makes his case to the board for why the school should go private and how he's going to fund it and raise all the money and everything. And then Lena gets up to give her piece where she explains how she was a founding member of the Anchor Beach Charter and why they made this school in the first place, and that good education is a right, not a privilege, and they can't continue to take from the poor and give to the wealthy, aka reverse Robin Hood. The board decides in favor of Mr. Stratos and to dissolve the Anchor Beach Charter. Now, as Drew and Mr. Stratos are thanking the board, you can hear students start to chant outside, including Mariana and Jude, and they're yelling, education is a right, not just for the rich and white. Now, Lena's looking out the window at the crowd, and then she turns to the board and says, good luck explaining this to them. Okay, so with this storyline, that's how we wrap it up for now. I still don't exactly see why Mr. Stratos is doing this. I know he has a grudge against the school, probably, but if the school turns private, does that mean that he can send Nick back to school? Is that why he wants control of the school? Or is it something else? Like, maybe in his head, does he sort of know that Mariana is right, and he hasn't been a good dad, and this is his way of trying to right his wrongs, but he's obviously going about it the wrong way, and he thinks that giving the school more money will help everything and is a good thing? I have no idea. It's kind of hard to read Mr. Stratos, but he is a jerk, but I still need to know why. And also, I just need Lena to, like, bitch slap Drew and get the principal job and get rid of him. And just take back the school. That's what I need. Alright, next up we have Brandon, Emma, and Jesus and the pregnancy abortion drama. This episode opens with Jesus having a nightmare where Emma tells him that the baby isn't his, but it's Brandon's, and this definitely is not a good thought for Jesus to have in his head. At school, Emma finally confronts Mariana about the Twitter and how she knows it was her, and that kids are trying to figure out which classmate of theirs is pregnant. Mariana tries to say, you know, this isn't a big deal, because she still has no idea the hurt that she's causing people, and she says that no one's gonna know it was her, especially Jesus, and he won't find out because she deleted it. And then Emma says, you know, it doesn't matter because I know it was you, and Emma says to Mariana, some kind of friend you are. I feel like we've kind of heard this a lot this season, Mariana. Later on, Jesus and Emma are downstairs working on homework when Mariana comes in and tells them about the board meeting, and she tells them to come. Now there's some major side-eye thrown from Emma, and Jesus picks up on this and asks her if everything's okay. Emma just says, oh, it's just stupid best friend stuff, and then these words kind of start to confirm Jesus' suspicion that Mariana was talking about Emma in that tweet because keyword best friend. Now everything that Jesus is putting together is starting to come to a head, and he ends up asking Brandon if he's ever gotten someone pregnant, to which Brandon kind of laughs and says, no. Jesus then tells him that someone at school had a secret Twitter account and he's pretty sure it's Mariana's, and one of the posts she made was about her best friend not telling her she was pregnant, and how that has to be Emma, right? Because, well, they're best friends. Brandon doesn't really say anything, and then Jesus goes to bring up the Twitter to show him and sees that it's been deleted. Now Brandon kind of, I feel like, breathes a sigh of relief, but he keeps up with his little lies and he says that it's okay, don't worry about it, and he leaves. Well, Jesus then, I feel like, is now running through his head being like, did I make this up? Did I not make this up? Did I really see that tweet? So he calls Grandma and asks him about the letter that she read him from Emma and how he can't find it, but Emma keeps asking him if he read it all, so he thinks that he's definitely missing something in it, and so he asks her if she read him the whole thing. Next, we see Jesus go into Stefanina's room, and he does it. He tells them that Emma was pregnant, got an abortion, and he just found out basically because Grandma told him about the letter. And he says Emma doesn't know that he knows, and then the moms are like, okay, well, how are you doing? He actually says that he's kind of okay. He never thought he'd be in this situation, but it's Emma's body. He just wishes that she would have told him and been honest with him. But then he says he's not going to bring it up to Emma. He's just going to wait until she brings it up. Now at the board meeting, Jesus goes up to Mariana, and since a lot of people showed up, he slyly just says it's a good thing someone spread that rumor on Twitter. And Mariana is quick to say, I know, right? And kind of act all innocent when Jesus says, I know it was you with that Twitter, and that you're stupid for thinking that no one would figure it out, especially me. And then he says he can't believe that she didn't tell him about Emma. Now Mariana fires back and says in her defense, how could she when he would freak out about just the pepperoni on his pizza because of his TBI? Like, she didn't want to set that off and she didn't know how to handle it, and obviously she handled it the wrong way. But she says that she didn't find out until recently and that he should really be mad at Brandon. Uh-oh. Outside of the board meeting, Brandon finally shows up, and it has started raining because, well, you know all dramatic things happen when it's raining. He tells Emma that he thinks Jesus is suspicious, and then Jesus walks up to confront them. Brandon tries to defend himself, saying, Emma didn't tell me, I figured it out, and then he says that he went with Emma to the doctor, and Jesus is definitely not happy about this, and Jesus tells him he doesn't understand why Emma didn't tell him. And Emma says she just thought it was for the best, and Jesus interrupts saying, it's because the baby was Brandon's, wasn't it? Huh? And Brandon starts to tell him no, and Jude interrupts to shout at the crowd about the board meeting, and Jesus runs off with Brandon running after him. Okay, so because of Jesus' TBI and all of this, he kind of mixes things up. He hasn't quite compartmentalized everything that's going on in his brain. So now his idea from his nightmare is kind of firmly planted in his head as reality, and he thinks that Brandon and Emma were cheating on him together, especially with everything he's seen throughout the season with, you know, at the piano and them talking secretly off in the corner when they're secretly talking about him. All these things. He's kind of added this up in his head and made up this whole scenario in his head. Now, with Jesus running off, we have no idea where he's running off to. And also, it's like, will he actually be able to forgive anyone? We do know that thanks to the TBI, Jesus definitely has quite the temper. We saw him go off on Brandon before, after the piano incident. So if Brandon actually catches up to Jesus, will Jesus listen? Will Jesus believe anything Brandon says? Or does he already have his mind made up? Also, could this maybe cause a fight between the two? And if so, a fist fight of some sort could definitely be bad news for Jesus, because if he gets hit, his TBI, that could mean the end of everything. Okay, now moving on to the real thing that we've kind of been waiting to find out. Is Callie going back to jail? Now at the beginning of the episode, the lawyers tell Steph and Callie that because of the new footage showing Callie in Doug Harvey's house and everything else that's been adding up, the only plea deal she can get now is 3 years minimum in jail, and they have 24 hours to decide on if they want to take the plea deal or proceed with trial. Callie is of course scared and says she can't go back to jail, and Steph assures her that they still have some time and they're gonna find a way and figure something out to do whatever they can to keep her out of jail. Callie then tells Steph, please don't tell anyone at home except for Lena because she doesn't want anyone feeling sorry for her or treating her differently. Now, Steph is determined to find some way to get Callie out of trouble, so she's back at her desk looking things over when she calls Mike. She ends up showing him the nanny cam footage from Doug Harvey's house of Callie in the house, and she says, remember when Doug told us that he had never heard of Martha's murder? Well, she then zooms in on the wall that is in front of Callie, way far in the background, that has a ton of newspaper clippings. Now, of those articles, a bunch are about Martha Johnson's murder. First of all, what kind of nanny cam does Doug Harvey have? Like, the resolution that they could zoom in, 300 times, 400 times, I don't know what it was, but that closely and see the newsprint of those articles, which are only like this big, so clearly, yeah, a tad bit unrealistic. Never seen a nanny cam that good, but you know what? If it helps Callie, I'll believe it. I also should get me one of those nanny cams. Anyway, after all this, Steph says she can't look into this because she's obviously too close to the case, but Mike says he'll take it on. Now, we don't see Aaron in this episode, which is interesting because they've obviously been building up this Aaron and Callie relationship, but he is there in spirit, via text, spelling lawyers with a Z. He texts Callie and asks her how things went with the lawyers, but she ignores it. Now, when she ignores it, she's in the classroom with Mariana and everyone making the protest signs, and then she asks Jude to go for a walk with her, and we finally get some Callie Jude time. We haven't seen a ton of them together, especially after Callie and Jude had the fight, and I know I'm not the only one who's kind of been craving them to resolve this issue. Callie tells Jude that she was wrong about Kyle, or was she? And what her lawyers want her to do at the trial, and she catches him up to speed on kind of everything. And she says to Jude that she knows he's going through a lot and he has the right to be pissed off, but she doesn't want him to be like her. She doesn't want him to channel his anger for something bad. She wants him to use it for good things like fighting for the school, which he's already doing anyway. And then Jude gets super sweet saying, where do you think I learned those good things from? It's you. And then, as any brother would, you start a sentence off by saying, I'm gonna say this to you, but if you tell anybody, I'll deny it. And then he tells her that she's his hero, and they have a sweet moment. They hold hands and kind of watch the sunset. It's like finally their fight has been resolved. It's just taken like all season or however long it's been, and Callie possibly going to jail for that to happen, but at least it finally happened. Mike has now called Doug Harvey back into the station for questioning, and Doug recognizes him and says, this is harassment. But then Mike says, I remember you telling me you didn't know anything about Martha Johnson's death, and then he shows him a picture of the newspaper clippings on the wall, and Doug finally confesses that he was at the house the day of the murder, painting the curb, but he wasn't the only one there, and Mike asks if it was Kyle at the house, but Doug says no, it was someone else. So aha! So for all of us, and I am guilty of it, who were so quick to assume that in the last episode Kyle was telling Callie the truth, that he was playing her and everybody else was wrong and that he killed Martha. Well, he didn't really say he killed Martha, but we were wrong. He was just tired of everything and had basically given up and was just trying to survive in jail and trying to act tough, and he didn't want Callie to see that he was, think he was weak or anything, and he didn't want Callie wasting more time on him. Wow. So poor Kyle. This poor kid is innocent. Now, the fear of going to jail is really starting to get to Callie, and we get a sweet Callie Brandon moment when she asks them if they can have this little jam session, and they start singing You'll Be Okay by A Great Big World. And I have to say, I miss them singing together.
Just close your eyes and let it rain.
Back at the station, Mike and Steph go to Detective Bruckner, smart guy dad, with their new findings and how Doug Harvey ID'd Troy Johnson as the person he saw at the house that day. Now, Bruckner is like, this was 4 years ago, how can we be sure that he remembers it was Troy? And Mike reveals that Doug Harvey is OCD and has the receipt for the curb painting, and the reason that he's been following this case so closely is he's thought that someone would end up trying to pin this whole thing on him, so he wanted to be prepared. Now, Bruckner then brings up Troy's alibi, and Steph informs him about Troy's relationship with Vanessa and how that alibi came about. And then Bruckner says, you really just need to go to Detective Gray with all this, because it's his case. But they obviously say that they can't because Gray's already messed this case up once, and that he probably wants Callie to go to jail because she keeps uncovering all the things he tried to cover up 4 years ago. And then they also tell Bruckner that an innocent boy could be going to maximum prison for life. That's Kyle. They then bring in Troy's girlfriend for questioning, Vanessa, and she reveals that they actually broke up, but she tells them that she didn't lie when she gave her statement back then. Now, Bruckner and Mike try to kind of scare her, saying that if they prove that she lied, she could go to jail. And then they ask her if she still swears that Troy Johnson was at work that day, and she says yes. Now, Bruckner leaves the room to talk to Steph and Mike, who are outside, and he says that he doesn't think that they're going to get anywhere with her, so Mike says, can we at least bring in Troy for questioning? Now, at this time, Steph gets a message on her phone that Russell has texted Diamond saying he's going to pick her and Tina up at 5, and yes, that storyline is still going on, so that plays a part in this episode. So let's talk about that. Steph then goes to set up a sting outside Girls United, but Diamond sees the cops outside, calls 911, and runs, and a cop car ends up showing up, tipping off Russell, who's waiting like a block away, and he drives away. Now, Steph is pissed and asks what was happening. They say someone dialed 911, so they go into the house and they see the phone off the hook. They hear the operator on the other end, and the other girls tell Steph that Diamond and Tina left. Now, at that moment, Steph kind of realizes that Diamond's been playing her this whole time, and she probably wasn't ever going to help her, and that she's going to bring Russell another girl. During this time, Callie is driving around with Daphne, and she tells Daphne that she's probably getting 3 years in jail. They then see Diamond and Tina walking down the street, so they get out of the car, and Daphne is like, what are you doing? Like, why are you running away? That's so stupid. Diamond says that if she doesn't bring a girl to Russell or go back to him, he's going to kill her, and she's just kind of scared for her life. She's crying, and if she ever really wants to get out of this thing alive, she has to bring him Tina. Now, Callie and Daphne are telling her that she doesn't have to do this, and then telling Tina that Diamond is lying, so now Tina is scared and says she doesn't want to go. And Diamond's like, but I gotta bring someone, so Callie then volunteers herself, saying she'll go with Diamond because she has nothing to lose because she's going to jail tomorrow. And this is where I just wanted to yell at the TV and say, no, Callie, Steph and Mike are working so hard to protect you, and they are this close, don't do that. But sadly, the little people in the TV screen can't hear me no matter how much I yell at them. Back at the station, Bruckner has now brought Troy in for questioning, and Mike tells Troy about his DNA on the murder weapon and their witness, Doug, and then Troy says that he has a witness too, and Mike's like, oh, you mean Vanessa? Mike then says that since Troy and Vanessa broke up, she's a little less interested in protecting him, especially when Mike brought up Doug Harvey to her. Okay, so with this, we never actually saw or heard if Mike and Bruckner kept interrogating Vanessa and finally got her to confess, or if they're just kind of saying that they got her to change her tune in order to scare Troy into confession. Either way, it works. Bruckner tells Troy that if he confesses, they'll make sure he doesn't end up on death row. Now, Troy confesses everything and says that he was helping his grandma with yard work when she told him that she had taken him out of the will, and he got mad. Then she told him that she took him out of the will because he was borrowing money all the time and she was tired of it. She just wanted Troy to get back and stand on his own 2 feet. Troy got mad about this and then swung his axe as she was walking away and ended up hitting her in the head, but he says he didn't think he'd actually hit her. We kind of see Troy kind of crying and actually feeling bad about what he did. Now, here's the thing. Is this the way that Troy's actually going to present his side in court too? Because if so, he's definitely trying to get some sympathy points. Maybe he felt that right away after the murder happened, but it's been a total of 4 years, Troy, and you've totally shown that you got a crazy mean streak, especially with what you did to Callie in that car. So I think it's going to be jail for you. Meanwhile, Callie and Diamond have now been picked up by Russell, and Mike calls Steph to tell her that Troy confessed, and then Daphne and Tina show up right then in Callie's car to tell Steph that Callie is with Diamond, and they are now with Russell, and Callie told them to tell Steph to track her phone. Now, back in Russell's van, Diamond tells Callie that Russell's going to pat them down, so she needs to hide her phone. So Callie puts it in this duffel bag that's laying on the floor. Bad idea, Callie. Russell ends up pulling over in a parking lot and handing the bag to someone out the window, and now Callie is freaking out because, her phone is in it. She tells Diamond that, and that Steph was tracking her with her phone, so she suggests, should we run? And Diamond says no and points to Russell's gun and is like, he has a gun. We next see Callie and Diamond in this seedy motel room with Russell and a few other people, and Russell is mad and tells Diamond, if I find out you were talking to the cops, I'm gonna kill you, or if he's helped with that sting. Callie then has to kind of pretend that she is Tina, this girl that Diamond's been telling him all about because of the record deal thing. And then there's this creepy moment when Russell tells Callie to call her daddy, and I just get shivers thinking about it or even re-talking about it. And Callie says, yes, daddy, to him. Now, why is this a thing? I don't think I'll ever understand how daddy has gotten turned into these other terms. I'm sure it's a logical explanation and I would understand it, but to me it just creeps me out. It's weird to me. Moving on, Russell makes everyone else leave, so he's alone with Callie in the motel room. He then makes her take a drink of his scissor, pretty sure that's what it's called, right? The cough syrup and soda or whatever it is, and then tells her to sing for him since she's a singer. Now Callie is scared, and obviously she's gonna do what he says for right now anyway, so she starts singing that song she and Brandon were singing earlier, You'll Be Okay. Now as this is happening, we see Steph in her car tracking Callie's phone, and they drive right by the All-Star Inn where Callie actually is and head onto the freeway, and that's where this episode ends. Okay, now I need to know if Callie is okay. Why must you do this to me every time the Fosters, like, ugh. So basically, at the end of season 4, no one got a happy ending. Brandon and Jesus are probably about to have a showdown. At least that's what I think. And I'm sure that Jesus and Emma's relationship will now probably be over because it's just too many secrets. And actually, Brandon and Mariana's relationship with Jesus will now be strained more than ever too. Will the rest of Mariana's secrets come out, like the whole thing with the lying about the treehouse project? I don't know. Everything's definitely gonna be super strained. We also don't know what's going to actually happen with Anchor Beach. We know that Lena is still on the fighting side, or the good side of the students for now, and hopefully Lena doesn't go over the dark side. But will the students and Lena be able to convince the school board to change their decision? Hopefully we find out what Mr. Stratos' real motive is. Now we do know that Kyle is in fact innocent now, but will they get him out of jail before he's kind of gotten himself in too deep with the gangs in jail? We already saw that he's kind of really given up and with the way that he interacted with Callie in the last episode. What's gonna happen to Troy? Will he go to trial? Will he get kind of a lesser sentence? Will he get a worse sentence? Now, poor Callie, she's at such a low point in this, with everything that's going on, that she's offered herself to take Tina's place, and we know that she said she has nothing to lose, but also in a way, she knows that if she does this, she's helping Steph with her case if she can lead her to Russell, but she obviously didn't count on her phone going off somewhere else. So it's like, if only Steph had gotten the news from Mike like 30 minutes earlier, Callie would have never been in this position, and she could just go back home and hug Jude and just be happy, and her case would probably have been dismissed. But no, the Fosters just doesn't like to give us nice things. And if Callie still ends up having to go to trial, now everything is even more complicated. Like, could all of this hurt Callie's trial? With Troy's confession, will the charges be lesser? What's gonna happen with all of this? Now, we do know that Callie usually has this complex where she tries to protect someone else over herself because, you know, she kind of gets so down on herself. She's like, I might as well fight for this person instead. And it's not a horrible trait, but she always seems to pick the most extreme cases and gets herself into even more trouble. Like how she possibly is now gonna be in a prostitution ring with Russell. And if she fights him, she could end up dead like all those other girls he's killed. Alright, so that's my recap of this last episode of season 4 and my explanation of the ending. Did I miss anything? We do know that the cast is already back at work on season 5, so hopefully we'll get some hints about what's to come. But until then, season 5 comes back July 11th. So what did you think of this episode and all these cliffhangers? What are your predictions for season 5? Did I miss any clues that might lead to something in season 5? Leave me all your thoughts and predictions down in the comments below or on my socials as always. And then you can click right over here for my recent Riverdale recap or one of my videos on 13 Reasons Why. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, I'm Lisa. Shine on! I really gotta stop saying that though, because I sound like that Jimmy Dean commercial. I'm pretty sure they stole my slogan.